Did AEW take things too far at All Out 2024? Well, let's take inventory, shall we? On Wednesday night to close AEW Dynamite, we saw arson committed as Hangman Page burned down the childhood home of Swerve Strickland. All Out Saturday night in Chicago had several attempted murders, the first of which took place after the opening match, after MJF defeated Daniel Garcia. Daniel Garcia low blows MJF and delivers a second rope pile driver attempting to break the neck of MJF. We had Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale attempting to murder each other in a tremendously fun Chicago street fight that included a spot where Chris Statlander landed coochie first on the thumbtacks. So thoughts and prayers go out to Chris Statlander and her coochie. Following the conclusion of Bryan Danielson's successful AEW Championship match against Jack Perry, he was viciously attacked by his former friends, and Jon Moxley attempted to murder Bryan Danielson by suffocating him with a plastic bag. But the main event of AEW All Out 2024 is what everybody is talking about. The main event is what is garnering the most discussion and debate amongst fans right now, and has gotten a lot of people talking and created a lot of buzz around AEW right now because of the people that are so fiercely on one side or the other. And you guys can let me know in the comments where you stand on this match. Did they take things too far? Well, they started off with an attempted murder. Seems to be the theme of the night, isn't it? Right off the bat, before the match even starts, Swerve Strickland attempts to decapitate Hangman Page as the cage is being lowered to the ring, and he's got Hangman's head draped off the apron. Now, luckily, Prince Nana knows better and stops Swerve from murdering this man and allowing the match to actually begin. So right off the bat, we got an attempted murder in minute 1. Mere moments after the attempted decapitation, we got a staple gun out, and the staple gun is going into the chest, the back, the cheek, the forehead, the face. Swerve brought out pictures of his family and stapled them to the face of Hangman Page and then ripped them out. Throughout the match, you could see a lot of these staples still sticking out of these dudes. How can we forget about our friend Mr. Cinderblock? And this ain't no gimmick Cinderblock like we've seen so many times in pro wrestling before. A cinder block that just explodes and disintegrates when you hit someone with it. This is the real deal, son. Swerve Strickland pulls out a cinder block, drops it in the ring, clearly showing that this thing is legit concrete. And both men take ridiculously scary, dangerous, many might feel unnecessary back bumps on the cinder block. Hangman Page first, gnarly laceration on his back, landed right on the corner, probably did some serious damage to himself. And then later on, Swerve Strickland taking a flat power bomb back bump dead center on the cinder block. We knew these guys weren't going to be playing games in this match, but I was thinking the violence was going to come more in the form of what we saw last time with blood drinking and whatnot. I didn't know these guys were going to literally try to murder each other by decapitation and blunt force trauma type of moves. And as if the match wasn't crazy and over the top and violent enough by this point, then we get to the finish. Hello, Mr. Syringe. Some people might draw the line at syringe. If your line is syringe, I can fully understand that. Syringe might be up there to the line for me too. We've seen a syringe in some crazier hardcore wrestling, probably CZW, places like that. You guys know better than me. But for mainstream number 2 wrestling promotion in the world, you're going to bust out a syringe, fine, but this better not be a regular thing. If we start seeing syringes come around every 3 pay-per-views, I won't like that. So I have a tendency to let a lot of stuff slide. And so I'm not going to tell you you are wrong if the syringe was too much. If that's too far for you, bro, I get it. I'm all right with it because of just how crazy it was. I mean, the needle going into his mouth, sticking in his mouth. I thought they were trying to do like a Steve-O Jackass type of thing where he's going to stick it through and it comes out the other side. But he just jams it in his mouth. Swerve has got this thing dangling in his mouth. And then they go to the finish, the syringe into the mouth first. And then Hangman Page grabs a steel chair. And he rears back and he swings that thing. And luckily, they pull to a wide shot on the chair shot. And it sounded like a gun went off. Smack! Right to the fucking head of Swerve Strickland. Down he goes. Referee immediately calls for the bell. That's a knockout. This was pinfall, submission, or knockout. And that was just an immediate knockout. I don't understand why Hangman couldn't have just pinned him there. But I guess this double protects Swerve, because not only did he not get pinned in this loss, it's an unsanctioned match. So technically this won't go in against his win-loss and theoretically won't hurt him in his rankings or contendership for the world title. But Hangman Page gets the win here. I believe this is the way it had to go, because this allows you to do more with this feud. With Hangman winning, it opens up the door for a lot more with him picking up the win here. And I don't know where they're going to go in the future with this, but you definitely know this story isn't done being told yet. And as Hangman is leaving the ring, he had a moment where the camera was showing you that he was going through something in his head. He almost looked maybe remorseful. He teased going back to the ring, either to deliver more punishment or to check on him. Like maybe he's realizing in his head, oh, this wasn't worth it. All of this violence wasn't worth it. This obsession that I've had with destroying this man, with setting his life up in smoke, it's not making me feel as happy as I thought it would. Like, we don't know what's going on with him. I mean, these guys might come full circle, and 1 year from now, they've formed a tag team or something. So you don't know. But I did like that they're making you wonder what's next for Hangman. Are we witnessing some sort of character development here? Or is, it's just hard to tell. There's a lot going on in his head and on his face because of the match he just had. So you don't really know, and you're not going to know more until you tune in the next TV. So they accomplished a lot here, not only with this feud and the violence of this feud and all of the crimes and attempted murders that took place not only in this match, but on the pay-per-view in general. And now you've taken it to this next step, and you know the story's not done yet. I think this feud is super fun, and they're going to do things that might cross the line for some of us, that might tread up to the line for some of us. The debate online right now, what I like about these type of debates is that there's really not a right or wrong. So when you're online, if you're going to argue with people, luckily this should be one of the debates where, the tribals are going to do their thing, but just ignore them. They're scum. But to the people that are actually kind of debating this, it's basically up to you. It's up to the consumer whether or not this is too far. Because if it is, you have every right to feel that way. And if you're cool with it, whatever. Now, if you're somebody that just started watching wrestling when John Cena was on top and wrestling The Rock back in 2012, this might be too far for you. But if you're somebody who, when they were in their early 20s or late teens, had ECW posters all over their bedroom wall, then this is probably a walk in the fucking park. It just depends on your perspective. What kind of fan are you? How long you've been watching, what types of wrestling you watch, what types of wrestling you prefer, and what type of a fan you are. So there's really no wrong answer. And let me know. Sound off in the comments below, please. Let me know what you thought. If this is too much for you, if this turned you off, cool. Maybe it's just not for you. If you like this, then let me know as well. Or if you're kind of in the middle, hey, I don't have a problem with violence or anything like that. I don't mind blood in wrestling, but I feel like the syringe and some of the stuff they were doing might have taken things a little bit too far. Cool. These are all right and valid opinions that I would respect if they are said in the comments below. What I won't respect is if you go on a 2-paragraph tirade about how much Tony Khan's existence makes you mad, and you fill it with cornetisms, and you parrot and you echo, and other people in the wrestling world tell you how to think. Those are the opinions I'm not going to really have any respect for. But let me know, where you stand on this, because one thing I will say that's positive about having more violence in AEW is that you don't have two companies doing the exact same thing. I want to see things in WWE that I can't find in AEW. I want to see things in AEW that I can't find in WWE. And one thing I did like about the 1990s is that even though all of the talent was mixing and jumping from WWE to WCW to ECW and back and forth, all of the companies had a separate identity. WWE felt a certain way. WCW felt a certain way. ECW felt a certain way. And so I like that in modern times, we don't have two companies trying to copy each other. You know, the wrestling shows already kind of look too much alike as it is. The announce tables are in the same spot. The stage is in the same spot. The Tron is in the same spot. Camera angles are the same. You know, we already have too much of that. So if we get one type of wrestling or one type of style in one company that we don't get in the other, that's good. Offer the wrestling audience something that you can't get over there. But there is a limit to that. I thought that we were going to see so much violence in the main event that they might want to tone down some of the other stuff on the pay-per-view, but they didn't. You know, everybody was bleeding. Mark Briscoe and Daniel Garcia and Willow and Statlander murdered each other. I mean, it was just nuts. The whole pay-per-view was just crazy. So they've had some criticisms in the past of using too much blood, where they're just bleeding buckets, and Moxley specifically. And sometimes we would see pay-per-views where you'd get blood in every match. And some fans question whether or not that's too much. And that's a fair criticism, because I like blood, but you don't need it in every match. It should, you know, a lot of people say it should mean something. That's true, but also you don't want to overuse it, because you can really tell a good story of, you know, the seriousness of an angle or a match when you use blood, and we don't see blood all the time. You know, that amplifies those moments. So there's kind of like a balance there. I don't mind blood every week per se, but I don't want blood every match, where some fans might not want blood at all. It just depends on what your taste is. Depends on what your style is. Pro wrestling has been around for a long time now, and there's a lot of fans, young and old, that are all in different places in their lives as wrestling fans. If Greg is watching this in 1995, a little bit before ECW started getting really crazy, it might be too much for 17-year-old Greg. But 47-year-old Greg can stomach it just fine. It just depends. So on one hand, I applaud AEW having the balls to really let it all hang out, do things that are a little bit over the top, might tread up to the line every so often. WWE made millions in the Attitude Era with that very philosophy. Let's get as far up to the line as we can without crossing it. So if you don't like the lame cop-out that every opinion is right, and you're like, Greg, good mic work, give us a fucking opinion. What's your opinion on this? Did it go too far? To me, no. But it was close. How's that? If they would have busted out one more syringe or one more cinder block or a knife made an appearance, I might reach my limit. So they got close with me. I'm cool. Didn't go over the line for me. But it probably wouldn't have taken much more for me to feel that way. I'll say this. I got my $50 worth out of All Out. I thought it was really good. I thought the opening match between MJF and Garcia was a lot of fun and told a good story. I gushed and gushed and gushed like a little girl during the watch along and the post little review that I did about how much I enjoyed Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale. I loved that match. It was so much fun. And those women had to follow Will Ospreay and Pac in a match that just blew my mind. And we've seen these guys work before, but there was just something about this match here, just with those poison ranas and the bumps and the hidden blades. All those deliveries were just so good. I was flying off my rocker, marking out, proud to be a wrestling fan watching that one. Okada and the Bucks' successful defenses, you know, they weren't great, but I think the matches were a little bit better than I thought they were going to be in terms of how I enjoyed them. So that was a positive. And Mercedes and Hikaru Shida, maybe a little better than Britt Baker and Mercedes from All In, but still not the greatest, probably the weakest match on the show. And for some reason, Mercedes is hell-bent on using that finisher. And I think her submission is great, the statement or the bank statement, whatever she calls it now. But that moneymaker is awful. And I just don't understand it. It's a stupid looking move. She's never really nailed it right. And I think she should consider pivoting to a new finisher. Find herself a move that she can hit and it looks good. And she's perfectly capable of that because she's a great pro wrestler. So I think she needs to reevaluate her finisher and dump that the way Shawn Michaels dumped his teardrop suplex. We were all really hoping to get some sort of a surprise or some sort of a return or a debut, possibly a Shane McMahon. I think that was on a lot of people's radar. And as we were watching the show, I noticed the time during the Danielson and Jack Perry match that there was a lot of time left. And all we had was Hangman and Swerve coming up next. So In my mind, I was thinking there is time for a post-match angle somewhere. And I said that out loud in the middle of the Danielson and Jack Perry match. And after Danielson beat Jack Perry, that's when we see Killswitch hit the ring, attack Danielson. Out comes Christian. We're all shitting our pants, thinking that Christian is going to cash in that contract. And before Christian and his crew can make it to the ring, Jon Moxley materializes out of nowhere, standing there in a white t-shirt, and he's joined by Claudio, who hops the barricade, and Wheeler Yuta and Pac, and they all stand there and form a barricade to block Christian from getting in the ring. So Christian and his crew, they leave and retreat. And I'm saying it out loud in the watch along. I'm like, he's going to turn. Something's going to happen. This is not Dynamite. This is a pay-per-view. So he's not just going to get in the ring and hug Danielson. We know Moxley is on the out with the BCC. So something has to happen here. And sure enough, he hugs Danielson. Everybody's hugging each other. And then Claudio comes in with the crazy uppercut, knocks Danielson down. Danielson stares at him in total disbelief. And Pac then grabs a hold of Wheeler Yuta and holds him back as Claudio and Moxley decimate Bryan Danielson. And Moxley brings out a plastic bag, kind of like the size of bag you would get in a hotel room trash can, like that size. And he puts it over the head of Danielson and he closes it off, and he's trying to suffocate, trying to murder Danielson. And you can see him breathing and the bag coming in and out on his face. And that had to be so hard to do. You know, I'd be freaking out in there, not being able to breathe, having my breathing restricted like that. And he's trying to suffocate Danielson while Yuta is screaming, can't do anything about it. So Yuta, who's 1/3 of the Trios champions right now with Claudio and Pac, that team, I guess, is going to be disbanded. They might forfeit the Trios titles, and we're going to have yet another tournament for these damn things, I guess. Or Moxley's going to fill in, and they're just going to kick Yuta out of the group completely. Don't really know yet. But Yuta is gone, and Danielson is gone from the Blackpool Combat Club. Marina Shafir would join them in the ring as well, and they would all leave together, I believe, through the crowd. So Moxley has now formed his new faction. It's got Marina Shafir and Claudio Castagnoli and Pac and himself. And he's been calling out Darby Allin lately. And you have to wonder what that's going to be about, especially if it plays into Darby Allin's upcoming title match, which I think is supposed to be Grand Slam, but we don't know. So Moxley could play a role in that. And we'll see if this eventually leads to Shane McMahon coming into the company. We really don't know yet, but that was an intriguing part, but it was also a violent part. And some fans, I know during the watch along, some fans in the chat thought that putting the bag over Danielson's head was going too far. And then just a little while later, we would watch what Hangman and Swerve would do. So overall, this pay-per-view was super fun. I enjoyed it, got my $50 worth, but it definitely had a violent, more dark side to it than any AEW pay-per-view I think we've ever seen. So if it's too much for you, if WWE is more your cup of tea, because it's just a little easier to watch, and if you have, you know, maybe an 8-year-old son or daughter that likes wrestling, that's something that you guys should be watching together. All Out, watching Hangman and Swerve with your 8-year-old daughter, I don't know. Tough call on that one. I'd probably say let's keep her in the other room. So it just depends. Like I said, it depends on what kind of fan you are. You might be a parent. I'm not a parent. So I got no little ones to worry about. I can watch whatever the fuck I want. But some other people, it might be too much. They might be spending their whole life watching Frozen and all the shit their kids watch. So watching something like that might be too much for a fan like them. Understandable. Totally understandable. So whatever your situation is, you know, because if you're going to let me know in the comments, like where you stand, also let me know why. I thought it was too far. Okay, why? Because I like this type of wrestling. Okay, good. You know, and I'll be able to sniff out the tribal shit pretty easily. So don't even try to be fronting. But if you have, you know, a specific opinion, you know, let me know why, because I'm this type of fan. You know, the reason I didn't have a problem with it is because I remember everything, you know, and I was alive I was in my early 20s for the heyday and most violent parts of ECW. I've seen people crucified and kids being turned against their fathers and, you know, barbed wire crowns and all sorts of crazy crap. So we've seen corpse fucking in WWE. Has anybody fucked a corpse yet in AEW? Has anybody climbed into a coffin and tried to sexually assault a dead body? Have we had that happen yet? What about bringing somebody's dead, exhuming somebody's parents from the grave and bringing them on the set of their television show and then choke slamming their brother into that? Has that happened yet? So we've seen crazy things. Wrestling is crazy. Wrestling can be violent. You know, I like wrestling more when it's like bonkers and fun. I prefer bonkers and fun to violent, but occasionally when I get violence, you know, these days I don't believe we're getting too much violence because wrestling already went through its, you know, hardcore era there in WWE where everybody's going through tables and everybody's doing chair shots and everybody's bleeding, and every match, those Attitude Era main events, Austin, Rock, Triple H, everybody's bleeding their balls off. So we went through that era. We had a lot of that, but then we also had a period where that wasn't as prominent. So now AEW, you know, busting out some crazy hardcore stuff hasn't gotten to the point where I consider it too far yet. So All Out 2024 was wild, and it got the internet talking, and that is good for AEW. All they need now is to get that media rights deal done, and they'll be sitting pretty, I guess. All right, guys. Thanks for sitting through my little mini review here. Take care. Talk to you soon. Peace.